Hi, my name is Winslet, and welcome to my guide on food exploitations in Age of Wonders Planetfall. I covered food sharing back in March, which is very closely related to the food exploitations. I didn't talk too much about them and how they compared to the other exploitations because I wanted to make a quick short video where I explained the graph that I made, basically showing that each pop that you get will make it so that you need more food in order to grow a new pop inside your colony centers. But I felt like after reading two comments on my channel that it would be a good idea for me to kind of revisit this topic, this idea, and go into more detail about the food exploitations and the upgrades that are associated with each of them, or rather with the food exploitations. So yeah, the first comment was pretty recent. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce his name. It's a pretty long one, and it may not even be English. He said basically that based on this playthrough that I pulled up here, which I've been posting on my channel, um, they thought that I'd be the best person suited to talk about all the different exploitations, and that they've always assumed that food is pretty awful in most cases and should almost never be invested in, except for maybe the starter building. The central food building is a pretty good place to start if you know you're not going to be getting any food exploitations. And people are arguing about it on Reddit. Basically, they saw the results I was having and thought this actually looks like a valid strategy, maybe even a good strategy for people to pursue. So yeah, that plus this comment, which really inspired this playthrough, made me decide I needed to look at this again in more of a guide format. And the other comment was by Sledgehammer. Or Sedgehammer, there's no L in there. They recommended that when you're building your first few colonies that you expand 3 times. You get 3 colonies outside of your capital one, and then each one of them should have at least 1 food specialization with food share building, and 1 aquatic specialization with algae farms. The capital first gets the food specialization with the food upkeep reduction. That's one of the upgrades that you can get, and you'll be setting food to take for the capital for the remainder of the game, just so you get lots and lots. A little bit later on, I switched out of that so I could get more energy from selling the food. Works pretty well if you've got 2 agricultural thingies, which I have in most of my colonies, because I said I'm not going to build any production exploitations, any research exploitations, or any energy. Orbital's fine, hydro exploitations are fine, and agriculture, that's what we're really going to focus on. Then they said that the capital pop workers should work production, energy, and happiness, with expansion pop workers working food and happiness. Expansions share half food until they reach 8 pop, then share all until they get their second happiness building. The capital becomes the only unit producing city, with all other cities in support providing food and resources with happiness events. So yeah, I love that general plan, but there's a great saying, I forget exactly how it is, but the best laid plans will fall apart in battle, because sometimes things come up that you make it so you have to actually adapt to like what's right in front of you. If you see a really nice location, a really nice landmark that you want to get, you may need to abandon this whole idea. So we're going to be basically looking at this game at different stages of expansion, and explaining my thought process, my guiding principles, because I think that'd be the best way for me to really get into why I did what when I did. Yeah. Okay, so we've gone back in time to turn 12, and I do think it is worth mentioning that I use console commands to unlock the vision on the map so that we can actually compare what colonies I have, the size of them, and what I've chosen on them to the competition. Like this person right here only has 1 expansion, and their colony has 9 pops. If you're building colonizers, it costs pops, which means your capital is going to be slightly smaller, but that's barely barely a difference right there. That's pretty good start for me here compared to how this person's playing, because these will expand pretty quickly, be able to grab sectors pretty quickly and become a lot more efficient in the near future. This person over here, similar situation, except for their main capital is actually smaller than mine. They've only got one expansion outside of this. And this player right here is the one that we really got to be looking closely at, because they are also an Amazon player, which means that they're going to be able to get a lot of easy growth from animals. When you kill animals as an Amazon player, you get a little bit of food out of it, so that will help you grow your colony centers a little bit faster. But on top of that, you can do some terraforming. You can make things into forests or Arcadian, which are both things that give you food. So does fungal and fertile plains, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to be able to get the things that you want in certain areas. This would be a pretty good one to turn into a forest with the reforestation thing. Don't think we have that unlocked in this playthrough yet. It is pretty important to get this if you're trying to focus on food and you've got Amazon. Even if you're not an Amazon commander, you can conquer Amazon to get this, to make sure you get more food and better exploitations, because, well, those upgrades that you can get are very, very nice. I love the first two. They're pretty awesome in synergy with each other if you like food sharing. And then the last one right here, it's really, really nice. So let's talk more about what I have here. I've got a food exploitation here, which I'm developing a upgrade for. I chose the one that Sledgehammer recommended that you do on the capital, the one that reduces your upkeep quite significantly. I think we can see how much it does right here. So the level 3 one is going to reduce the amount of food required to grow a pop and reduce our upkeep. That upkeep is quite significant because all pops require 2 food upkeep, and once you get to level 4, it basically means that you're not going to have any upkeep. That colony center has to worry about. All the food they gain is going to go towards growth. Reducing the amount needed for growing a pop means you'll have more pops sooner, all around better, because then you'll be able to produce more stuff. Definitely want to put that in your capital, and once these things are grown, you might even want to consider putting that on them, although I think the agricultural export should be what you go for first on them. If you put 2 agricultural things on them, you can go with both, but you may want to save one of them for the other upgrade later on. Maybe consider getting food from the water if you can do that. I mean, you may spawn in the middle of the map, and that may not be an option for you, but it's definitely worth considering when you are looking around, when you're scouting the areas around your starting position. I almost put this in my starting location to get a really awesome food exploitation really early on, but I think I was using influence for other things, like buying people off of locations and maybe buying units. It's a tricky decision in that early game. Okay, so we've skipped forward again. Now we're on turn 21, and my cities have grown quite a bit. This is on population 13, and if we go over to the other Amazon player, we've caught up. We have just as many population in our central colony as they do. They just started taking in this settlement. It hasn't grown any pops yet. It will next turn, and they've got this expansion and this expansion. So that's 3 expansions, 7, 4, 0 pops. And I have 1, 2, 3 expansions. I actually got this, I think, a turn or 2 ago, and it's already up to 2 pops. This one's up to 9 pops. This one's up to 9 pops. So you can see that this strategy that I've invested in has allowed me to get a lot more pops, which means I can get more expansions a lot quicker than people who aren't doing this, and that gives you vision as well as resources. If you don't want food, you can turn it into energy pretty easily. When you go in here, you can go share all, sell excess, and I think I've done Same on this one, which means if I just go in here and say prevent deficit, all of a sudden I'm turning that into energy. The higher level exploitations you have, the more efficient that conversion is. I think with this one you need to get this thing up to pretty high tier to make sure that sharing tax is reduced, which I think in turn gives you more energy. Pretty nice. I do want to explain that I took this as the center location on my city instead of this one because it was a little bit easier to defend, and also it had this nice stadium arcadium, which is quite good if you're using this strategy, which I'm outlining here. But you want to use the happiness events to generate a lot of resources. You get a random dice roll. It might give you energy, it might give you food, it might give you cosmite, it might even give you influence, which is incredibly helpful. So yeah, I put that there to get those events going. I didn't want to have to wait for my colony to grow for that to be inside my space. This could be my second or the first exploitation that's attached to this, which is a really high level exploitation, which means it can grow just really quickly. And on top of that, this doesn't have forest, so we can use the reforestation thing to get some forests, which in turn pairs really well with this this doctrine, which I'll be getting pretty soon in this game. Yeah, it's just a good thing in general. This thing may seem really exposed and far away, but we've got this teleporter which connects up to the main chunk of my empire right here. Now, if we compare this to what everyone else has, this guy has a lot. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 expansions and a pretty sizable colony center. I think they were one of the ones who played better than the other AIs. But if we compare the numbers of pops in each one, it's still lower than all the, the second largest colony. My second largest colony has more pops. This guy's not off to a very good start. And this one being the closest is the one that I attacked first, just so we could get the most out of them. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a this will be an export thingy like we have here on this location. You should put that in your expansions as early as possible. So we've jumped forward again to turn 29, and our cities are pretty big. We've got our capital at large enough size to have 4 exploitations, and we're starting to think about orbital relays. I've started to set one up here near my capital so we can quickly get our units that we build in the capital and buy from NPC factions off to our front line, which is right here. We're getting ready to attack this white player down here. They are really close to my border, and I've got my units in a position where I can just keep pouring more through and focus my guys at them reasonably early. This guy up here is also building a orbital relay in case I want to clear out this stuff. There's some nice locations around here, like a cosmite node and this thing right here, which is also like a cosmite node, but it gives your flying units more accuracy on their attacks. It's a pretty nice location to clear out. I don't think I ever got around to doing that because, well, I was sending my units elsewhere to fight a war or deal with other things like that, clear out other locations that were a little bit more of a priority to me. Let's compare the size of our stuff to the other Amazon player. We've got 17, 13, 10, 7. They've got 16, so we're slightly bigger in our capital. 10, 7, 7. So, yeah, I have pretty much all colonies that are bigger, except for this one's 7 and that one's a 7. If I wanted to share more resources here, I could probably have gotten that up a little bit quicker to 8 pops, and that would have been just, so much more impressive, I guess. I didn't mention earlier that the reason I went for this node right here is because I knew I'd be able to clear out the cosmite node relatively easily and there's, Cosmite's really important, so grabbing locations like that is super nice. Now let's look at the actual exploitations and what I chose to put on them. This one's got the export center, and this one's got the one that reduces upkeep, the plantation, which you may want to save one for the wellness one. We are getting close to unlocking that. We only need a couple more turns, but I think in the meantime it's good to have these guys generating lots of food and also sharing it elsewhere. I think this one is on, yeah, just simply preventing deficit at this point in time. I forget why I did that, because he really should be sharing if he's got the export center. But it may be that I was just trying to grow this one out a little bit quicker to grab as many sectors as possible. I mean, getting that thing right there, the orbital relay, is pretty important. So I guess that makes sense. I turned that off for a little bit. And this one over here, I could grab this one, but I think I'm planning to get the wellness one, which reduces the happiness needed for happiness events by quite a bit, as well as how much you get from those happiness events by quite a bit, because of the Stadium Arcadium. This is a great city to try and grab happiness events with. It's got 10 free happiness. Should allow you to hit your target a little bit quicker, quite a bit quicker. Keeping your colonies low will make it so that this threshold is a little bit easier to meet. I think if I type in happiness, we can see the thresholds. Yeah, once you've got 10 pops, it becomes 50 is your threshold, and if you're 3 pops, it's 30. If you're at 14, it's 70. So keeping it under 10 pops can be kind of a good thing if you're going for happiness events. I think just grabbing lots of sectors is slightly better, but I'm open to other people's opinions on that point of view. Could just compare ourselves to our opponent here. 10, 10, 5, 7. Sad. And this one's got 12 as its biggest one. Our expansion down here is bigger than their capital. And that's mostly because I think they've grabbed so many colonies. They built a lot of colonizers. This guy's starting to build out a little bit, but you're gonna, between two powerful players, it's gonna be hard for them. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say on this part. So we've jumped ahead another couple turns. We're on turn 37, and my cities are looking really, really strong. We've got a whopping 21 pops in the capital, and if we compare that to this guy, they're not even at 16 pops. This one is at 9 in the capital. This one is at 18. They're not too far behind. They're at 14, and this used to be the capital of the other player. So our capital is easily the biggest, will continue to stay the biggest, continue growing for quite some time. I think you are limited by two things: the happiness income that you have and the amount of food that you can produce. If there's no upkeep, then you don't really have to worry about how much food you're making in terms of limiting how many pops can be in there, because as long as you got people working food, there will be growth. So keep that in mind. This strategy allows you to fit a lot of people in a couple cities, and I was looking at this one earlier thinking, why did I leave that one at 7 pops? Why didn't I grab a hydro exploitation and have it grow that way? Well, I think the orbital relay makes sense to allow me to defend it quickly, but also I didn't have vision, and I didn't know how close people were on the other side of this. I didn't scout out this direction, and I figured somebody could come out of nowhere and take it off of me pretty easily. It's better to actually send the production from here, the growth from here, to my other cities to get the most out of them and to be able to protect them without too much effort. If everything's clustered together, it's harder for the AI to come in and take it off of you. It's harder for even a human player to come in and take it off of you, although they will do it more effectively than the AI. We've got a hydro exploitation here, which is great because it allows us to produce more base energy, food, research, as well as give us jobs. Once you've got like 21 pops in a location, you're going to start to fill up these locations a little bit more. I think I had like 30 or something in my last save that I took, the last thing that I recorded, so everything was pretty full up here, and just having this be able to upgrade to give you more job slots can be quite good. It's going to allow you to get more energy production and research production if you limit yourself like I did with this playthrough. And yeah, if you look down here, I completely wiped the floor with the AI. They just weren't ready for me. I got my early growth and was able to take on the AI a little bit quicker, which meant they just didn't have the defenses they needed. All other guys are kind of scattered across the map, and I just walked right through them. I did have to destroy some of their exploitations because they weren't food things. It's not optimal, but it's okay because the food growth is something that allows you to kind of share with your main capitals, and I think it's not the most efficient way of doing things, but it is a nice safe way to get a little bit more out of these expansions without taking too much risk. A lot of my guys need orbital relays too, so getting rid of these things so I can get relays to jump my guys back up to the top is important. I think at this point in time I was thinking I need to attack green. I could see that they're near this dwelling. They set up a colony right there, and that's pretty close to me. That's closer than any other player I'd seen, and it's worth taking on. Another thing that I wanted to mention was if you've got a nice level 5 food sector that you want to pass off to another one, you can do that so long as they don't already have to. This guy can't take this thing because it's already got, well, full sectors, but also 2 food sectors. You can only have 2 of each type, so keep that in mind. They will keep their upgrade, so it's a great way to grow a lot of tiny small cities. If I set up like one here, I could pass that off to a colony over here, and it would grow a lot quicker. I think this one is the export center, so it wouldn't be the best one to pass off. One that helps it grow a little bit quicker, not the agricultural one. The food plantation would be a better one to pass off to another city. So like say I set up one over here and then pass this off to that city, it would grow a lot quicker and be pretty optimal. Could also try and set one up over here and set up a food sector right here to pass off to it pretty easily because it's got 2 food and it's only 2 jumps away from here. I could grab like a hydro exploitation here and then a farm here and then pass that off to another one. It's not my favorite way of playing because it makes it a little harder to set up your things for the long term. You'll have to be micromanaging a lot, and sometimes I just like to build in exploitation and leave it. But I could see it being a nice competitive strategy. It's something that I need to play around with a little bit more. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, as much as I want to spend a lot of time building the upgraded wellness community center thing here, or maybe the export thing here, it's gonna build defenses first, and you may even want to consider just generating energy versus sending food away, because it may get you more now, and you never know if you're going to be able to defend this. You're going to have to sacrifice 3 turns of production in order to get one of these things up and running, whereas you could just simply be generating energy. Right now I'm making lots of energy, and I think that's partly because I can just sell food if I want energy, and when I'm at war I want energy. So yeah, I think it's quite an effective strategy for all the reasons I've listed out in this video. If there's anything that you want to add, please feel free to let me know. Before we wrap up, let's just take a quick look at some of the protections that we're getting from these cities. That's quite a bit of production for something that's only a level 2, or got 2 pops in it. This is only 50 because if it generates something that would be less than 50 of a resource, it just rounds up to 50. This thing doesn't make lots of research, so just happened to choose something it doesn't make a lot of, and as a result, it only made 50 research. This one's making a little bit more than 50 food because it's making a little bit of food, but not a whole lot of food. There's definitely colonies out there that make more food than that. This one made 62. It's making a little bit more research, so that makes sense to me. This is 100 production. It's got a pretty decent amount of production, so yeah, it's doing some nice stuff. This right here is where this strategy starts to make a lot of sense to people. I think if you see 495 energy off of the Capital's Happiness event, you start to see why this is effective. We're only in turn 37, so it's like mid-game, starting on the late game. 500 energy. That's massive. And I can get another happiness event in 2 turns. It makes 25 a turn like this. If I only do that, that's not ideal. But yeah, it does look like it took happiness, the leftover happiness from the last one, to build towards the next happiness event, which means, you don't have to make 25 a turn, but if you make 25 a turn with 50 being the limit like this, that means you will get a happiness event every 2 turns. I could potentially get 500 energy every 2 turns, or a boatload of influence, or a boatload of cosmite. Because this has so many pops and so much production, I think you just get more resources out of it when you get those happiness events. But yeah, that's everything I wanted to say here on that topic. I'll see you around. Have a good one.